For Stephen.
Sure, go ahead.
Maybe staff can also answer this. So it feels as though we're being pushed into this, you have to do this right now, today. It hasn't been followed in 12 to 15 years. What's the harm in waiting another month to table this, to have a discussion, change the code, and then get it, and have that discussion? I don't see the rush for this here this evening. And that's really my question to you. Why the rush?
I understand your frustration. I hear the frustration of the commission, and you and I have talked about this in one-on-one, or with Ernest, I should say. So I wouldn't say there's a rush, but the town code does take precedence to the bylaws. The town code says what it says, and it's said that since at least 1998. So if you don't do this, yeah, I mean, I don't want you to feel pressured to have to do this. There's been a lot of questions of why do we have to do this, and what if we don't do it? Well, this is really more of a policy decision, and it's a policy decision that comes down from the council that appoints you, that they want it done this way. Now, I'm not, there's no right or wrong way to do it. You guys bring up valid arguments and valid concern. You guys can't have a joint session with them or talk about it. But in the meantime, I don't know what you guys are proposing. If you're proposing not doing, then how do you want to function?
I think honestly, from what I'm hearing is that, again, the communication on this has been very poor. I'm good at admonish staff and even council for that matter. This has been poor. The communication has been poor. We should have had a work study session before this even got to this meeting. And that is what I think, and I'm hearing we should do before we even move forward this evening on this whole thing. And
that's your prerogative to take, as a board, to take that position. I understand that, but you guys are asking questions. Well, and one of the other issues was raised. Well, why don't we just go right into changing the code? Well, with all due respect, that's not the charge of this board, and I hate to be the one to tell you this, but you guys don't have the authority to change the town code. So if that's something you want, then you have to work through the council to do that. As we've discussed, you guys are appointed by the council. You will serve at the discretion of the council. We talked about this ad nauseum at the June 7th training and went through these things. So I enjoy working with this board. I don't want there to be any friction among the board and among staff. Ernest has laid this out very well. Donna's here new. We have staff here. So you raise valid questions.
And I mentioned this in our conversation before. At that training session, even Ivan brought up the fact that we could potentially look at changing code.
Correct.
And so I thought, okay, maybe that is what we would probably do, and that wouldn't even come, before us this evening like this. This was kind of a shock, to be quite honest with you, a big surprise, because it's like, again, it feels very rushed. There was no communication, and I think therein lies the biggest issue.
And I understand your frustration, and I've told you that. And I think probably I've worked with and alongside Ivan long enough. What he probably meant is certainly the town could explore changing the code. But again, that's not for you. This commission does not change town code.
We know that.
Make recommendations to the council, then we can move forward with that. But what we need to do is we need to decide. The commission has work to do. Fortunately, it's not anything beside this tonight. But you guys need to decide as a body what you want to do. But to answer your basic questions, that's what the town code says. It doesn't. Since the bylaws are in conflict with the town code overrides the bylaws. So,
could you read to me that section of the town code that says board and commission chair and vice chair elections have to be held in that board or commission's August meeting?
It doesn't say that. And to answer your question, you had an election, and now the proposal is that you have an election, because this now is a change from the way you've been operating. So as Ernest has correctly pointed out, it'll start a timeline moving forward.
The courtesy of a heads up and a little time to think about it would have been appreciated.
And I understand in
The record.
Steve Carroll, Pronghorn Ranch. I worked for 3 municipalities. I know a flim-flam when I see it. I do thank you, Assistant Attorney, for exposing this gentleman's flim-flam because you contradicted the heck out of him. 2 or 3 times you said this decision came from a training session, and then you, sir, identified it as coming from council.
training session was a part of that, council.
Well, this is, and when Commissioner Evans was talking, my thought was railroading, and that's what I'm watching. And like I said, I've worked for 3 different municipalities for many, many years, and rush jobs lead to broken results. And this is a huge rush job. Now, I have a question. Town Code 8, are you familiar with that?
So you're in the public comment period?
Town
Nobody's
Co-
on this.
Okay, I'm sorry,
And
shouldn't
sir,
converse.
allow me to please proceed. If the chairman's not going to tell you, I'm going to tell you, you're under a public comment period. It's not a time for you to interrogate any of the commissioners or myself, so go on with your public comment.
Thank you.
You're
Town Code 8 states that the police department and the dispatch center that dispatches to the police department is required to enforce unlicensed solicitations, and they don't do that. I do not see the town attorney worrying about that. And that's a lot more important to us as the people than this rush job to get a vote in tonight. And the obvious decision here should be retroactive from the January vote. It's that simple. Okay, from now on, next January, it's a vote. We're not going to do this anymore. But I don't see that here. This is a rush job, and I don't like it. I don't like to see my town run this way. We don't rush stuff, you get broken results.